Howdy, howdy, y'all. Welcome back to Some Antics. I'm trying out a new scene here. It's got our faces in big. It's excellent. When in doubt, I like to use Anthony as my guinea pig for trying any new things with the stream, including the stream.
The
Uh,
stream itself.
yes, the stream itself. You were back in late January. You were the first stream guest, and you've now been on. This is going to be your third time, which is really exciting. Um, so it's great to have you back, Anthony. Always enjoy having you on. Would you like to introduce yourself and maybe talk a bit about what it is we're going to be doing today?
Sure. Very happy to be here again. I really enjoyed both the streams we've been on, and we hang out in the React podcast Discord all the time and do the events.lunch.dev. And you've helped me get into 11D a lot recently as well, which has been very cool. What I do is I am a developer advocate for StepZen, and some people may know me from the work I've done advocating for Redwood.js. And today we're not going to be talking about kind of any of that stuff. We're going to be talking about something that I think is just like a really interesting project in modern front end web dev that touches a lot of different things, and it's called Vite. And so we can kind of get into exactly like what that is. But I'd be curious like what your take on it, what you know about it now, and what your kind of view of it is.
Okay, so I understand that like basically putting in the frame of mind compared to like the work that I do on a day-to-day basis, and it seems like Vite is a replacement, if you will, for Webpack, but it's a replacement that's able to move faster because it makes some core assumptions about the way that you're going to be doing web development, or app development in general, such as I believe it's using ES modules by default is a big one, I think.
Yeah,
That's
so
yeah,
yeah,
that's really what I know about it. Is that
cool. Yeah, no, that's a pretty good kind of high level view of it, because it's what have some people have been calling it like a modern build tool or like a next gen build tool. And the the reason why this is kind of hard to disambiguate is that the build tools we use now, like Webpack, they're not really just build tools. It's actually a kind of a couple different things it does, because it's
Mhm.
building stuff, it's transpiling stuff, it's moving files around, it's like renaming things. Like Webpack can do a ton of stuff because it's been extended so much over all this time. So it has a lot of legacy in it, and it's like really slow. And so things like Beat, and then also things like Snowpack, they're saying, what if we built a similar tool but with a different internal architecture so it will be faster? And then we can also at the same time rethink the opinions and the way you actually build your apps. Like you were saying, it assumes certain things about your project structure and that kind of thing that we'll get into. And but so did Webpack, and any build tool has to have some opinion,
Mhm.
because you have to have a file, you have to have code living somewhere. But it's trying to not rewrite anything in the sense that it's still having us just use like JavaScript and HTML, and it's actually centering it more around the index.html as like the entry point of your app instead of an index.js. And so it's one of those things where it's like very deep into the tech of what we build, and it can be hard to kind of like understand how it relates to other things. So the Webpack comparison is a good comparison, and it's also somewhat comparable. It's just like roll up, and the difference though is that we have now ES modules, which changes the game of what needs to be transpiled and
Mhm.
what format you're writing in. And you also have modern frameworks where people are writing in JSX, which is its own language, or TypeScript, which is also kind of its own language.
Mhm.
So we want a tool that's going to let us do all of this stuff in a way that's like easier to config. And it also comes with like really good templates, which was be some of the things we'll kind of be looking at. But what I like about it is that it's like a really easy tool to get your hands on and start using if you're a
Okay.
developer and you're like comfortable with like a CLI, because you can just use it just like you would any other kind of tool where you're just like running a development server, and then you have that whole deal going on.
All right. Well, I'm super excited to give this a shot. Um, I guess shall we hop into it, or is there anything else you'd like to kind of explain about Vite and this ecosystem before we hop into it?
There's definitely a lot more we could go into in terms of like the history. The thing that was interesting for me was watching this tool slowly become integrated with frameworks that I've been following for a while. So
Okay.
some people may know of SvelteKit. It's a framework built on top of Svelte, and it was originally using Snowpack. And like when I wrote my first blog post about SvelteKit, it had a Snowpack config file in it. And now if you go read that blog post, because I update, try and keep my stuff up to date, it's now a Vite config because the team ended up actually switching out Snowpack for Vite at a certain point. So you were able to see the kind of discussion play out in real time within the framework of SvelteKit, which was really, really useful because now you're seeing things like Nuxt is going to start using Vite a lot more. And it's still like the experimental phases, but like Peter has hacked Redwood to work with Vite also. So you have a lot of these meta frameworks that are using Webpack start to say, okay, this thing is actually mature enough now that it can be, we can start bringing it in as replacement for Webpack.
Gotcha. Yeah, I think frameworks like that, especially the meta frameworks, the frameworks that kind of live or die based on the set of opinions that they have, it's really interesting to use them as kind of a barometer for tooling like this because they're not going to use it if it's not stable or useful, right? Like they like if your opinion is that, oh, we want to use this tool because it's the new hotness, well, the second that breaks and you have to like move to something else or you have to do something hacky, like it's really hard to pivot away from that and move to like, oh well, we're actually going to use this other thingamajig instead. Like, yeah, you really have to be confident that the tooling that you're adopting is going to serve your needs for a long while. So
well, what's so great about these frameworks picking up these tools, it creates a game of like technical chicken where both of them have to get it to work. So you end up a lot of good debugging kind of going on between like the frameworks, you integrating these tools and being like, okay, like where does this actually break? And then you bring that back to the tools and then they upgrade it. And then also you have a working thing again. So there's that. This is why open source is so cool because these new projects can come in, people can start integrating them, and it's just like a kind of free for all. But because it's all open, it's like a giant, massive research project that like everyone's working on.
Gotcha. I really like that framing. I think that's excellent. Yeah, let's go ahead and dive into this. So I'm gonna go into this view now. Howdy. Now we're off in the corner. We are smaller, but we are still here. So yeah, first of all, Anthony's great. Knows lots of things. Explores lots of things. Go follow Anthony on Twitter. And you'll get a constant insight into some of the newer things that are coming out. Um, he's absolutely one of my favorite follows. So go give him a follow. Yeah. So the other thing while we're sharing links is that you prepped for me kind of an outline of the stuff that you wanted to go through and talk through. And I wanted to make sure that I put a link to that outline in the chat as well. So do feel free to take a look at that if you wanted to follow along and stuff like that. So there we go. Yeah, so I'd like to go ahead and get started. How should we get started, Anthony?
Cool. First, what I want to do is not use any of the built-in templates, even though that's what you'll most likely end up doing is using the templates. But first, I want to like build a project totally from scratch. And this is actually what Evan Yu does when he kind of explains it to people. He's the creator of it. So if you could just pop open a terminal and like mkdir, make a project and cd into it, and we'll create like an index.html and all that.
Sounds good. It is. My computer is thinking about it. There we go.
Very
hard. All right, so gonna make a new directory. I'm just gonna call this intro to Vite. I'm gonna hop into intro to Vite. All right, and then open up some VS Code.
Awesome. And then we'll just create an index.html to start off and put just like a single h1 tag with like some text in it. Like don't even give it a title or anything.
All right. Let's do that. Okay.
Not maintaining Vue ecosystem projects.
Hello. Sorry, I need to change some syntax highlighting because my default, I do so much 11D that my default for processing processing HTML files is HTML liquid. Okay, so what should we put in here? I guess I'll just put the like stream title semantics.
Yeah. So I usually do.
Creation of front end tooling. Citing. I feel like I should be putting so much more in this. Should I put the whole HTML template?
We're gonna add to it. So
Okay.
first I just want to show because we'll see like how it'll look just getting like this. So now you're gonna go back to your terminal and we're gonna add the Vite dependency.
Okay.
So do yarn or npm, doesn't really matter.
Yarn.
So yarn add and then dash capital D.
I need to initialize this first, right?
You might not have to.
I guess let's just initialize it.
Yeah.
There we go. Okay. So we're adding as a dev dependency.
And then just Vite. Yeah. No JS.
Okay.
Yeah. And then this will be all you need to do. And then now you can run yarn dev and that'll kick off your server and you'll get going. So
command dev not found.
Actually, sorry, yarn first. You gotta install the dependencies. Because just do just yarn by itself.
Yarn, okay. No, it's got everything.
Oh wait, sorry. I skipped a step. We need to add the actual. I went even lower level and you write your own script. So script and then just do dev and then Vite. Yeah.
Okay. All good?
Yep. Now it should work.
Yarn dev. All right, and so it tells me I've got a dev server running at localhost 3000. Let me pull this up. Looks like it's showing an H1.
There you go. So go ahead and like add a title now to it.
Okay. Guess I'll just add the whole structure then.
Yeah, you can do a whole HTML boilerplate.
Right. I'll place this in here, and then I'm gonna just paste this in here. Cool. If I save this and come back, it looks like it's already updated. So the dev server is doing live reloading, which is excellent.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Now let's get a script tag going in our index.html. So this gets into the ESM stuff, which is that we're just going to import JavaScript right into the HTML. So you'll have script and type equals module inside the script.
Type equals module. Cool.
And then we're going to import a file we haven't created yet because I want to show the error message we get, which is really, really nice. So import main.js.
Import just as a.
So do
string?
yeah.
Okay.
So do /main.js.
Okay. Oop.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yes. So now if we go back, we'll see we should have an error.
Yeah. So I saved this. It tells me failed to resolve import main.js. Yeah. Does the file?
So you see, first off, nice error message, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. It's even like, hey, are you sure this exists? Like, it gives me the first thing to check. Right, and that's super helpful. All
cool.
right.
So let's create that main.js now.
Got it. All right. Should I put anything in here?
So first, let's just console log just some message like a hello world kind of thing. And then this will make sure that we're importing our JavaScript correctly.
Okay. So should I guess if it's an error, should I refresh this or
possibly might need to restart the development server because we also created a new file. You just need to refresh, yeah.
Yeah.
And then open up your dev tools.
Yeah. And that is the debug for that. Cool. And I would expect in the console, yep, there's our hello world.
Sweet. Cool. So that's all you need to get to like get your whole kind of thing wired up in the way that you would want to do. Like now you think about it, you could do a single page app that would be your JavaScript that would be feeding into your index.html. So you're already kind of set up for doing that very, very easily.
Cool.
And the next thing we would do is like bring in some CSS, so create like a styles.css and then do basic kind of styling for the H1.
Styles.css, and yeah, okay. Any particular styles you're in the mood for? Maybe I'll just.
I mean, I've heard you like purple, so.
I do like purple. Let's do some purple. There we go. So I've got my styles.css. Now, should I be okay? Do you want me to import this in my main.js, or do you want me to import it in my index.html?
Yes, good question. So we're going to import it just like we did the JavaScript. So we're going to import in our index.html, and it's just going to be style.css, exactly like that.
Cool. And immediately our H1 has changed. Travis is asking, where's the Comic Sans font family? That's actually cursive. You can use cursive, and Windows devices, I believe, will treat that as Comic Sans. And I think we got Marcelo in the chat as well. Hello. Glad y'all could make it.
Be curious, people in the chat. I mean, I know people in the chat who've used Vite, so be curious what thoughts are on it. If you enjoy it so far, if you've hit weird issues. Yeah, Matt's definitely gone down the rabbit hole.
Yep. All right. So we're using this import syntax here. Is this native to the browser, or is this Vite doing some magic here?
So as far as I know, this is just ESM. And having it just be ESM is the whole kind of idea, because then if you want to, you wouldn't necessarily even need to bundle it. This is also a thing Snowpack says all the time, is bundle because you want to, not because you need to. So it starts you off just doing native ESM, and that's why it's also really fast. And the thing that makes it different then is you don't have all this common JS and the require syntax and stuff like that. So this is where the biggest pain points also come with these tools, and so you need to be like wary of if you're going to go down this like new cutting edge tech kind of thing. Is getting all this node stuff to work in ESM world is where all this stuff gets complicated. And so there's like plugins for plugins to like get ES build plugged back into Babel, to plug back into like these things. So there's like workarounds to do all of it, but we're getting closer to the point now where people are saying like we should just build for ESM because it's in all the browsers up to I think IE 11. So it's people feel more comfortable building around it and making it kind of the main thing that you're using. And that's like, if you look at the Vite like README, the first thing it says as this like way it describes itself is a dev server that serves your source files over native ES modules.
Travis is asking, just curious if it would be like to use this for bundling NPM packages.
There's Vite has a lot of good stuff in their docs about different ways of bundling and whatnot that may be useful. That's not a thing I have ever done. Like I've messed around with beyond like installing 9,000 NPM packages a day. I've never actually like published one, so I would not be the best person to ask, but they definitely have a lot of information.
Gotcha.
There we go.
Yeah. Okay, so Vite's dev serves all code as native ESM. Therefore, Vite must convert dependencies that are shipped as CommonJS or UMD into ESM first. And it looks like the kind of strong opinion that's taking there is Internet Explorer is dead. Long live Internet Explorer, right? Just straight up not going to support IE. And so that I guess is a trade-off you have to make, right? Like if IE support is still crucial for you, then Vite's not quite where it's at for you right now. But if you are comfortable leaving IE behind, then this will help you ship slimmer stuff, because you can ship just the code that you needed to write and not all of the converted cruft that you've built in a build set.
Yeah, I think it's an interesting pivot point, because you've had all these different features that have always been created in the web on different time scales that have been available in different browsers. And you've always been able to make the argument that you need to support older browsers, because like the newer features are nice to haves, but with
Mhm.
like a module system, this is something that almost everyone agrees is like it needs to be a core part of JavaScript. And
Mhm.
so it seems like it's a place for people like drawing the line where it's like this is a big enough change to like leave behind this like somewhat still large chunk of the air, depending on how you define large.
Yeah.
And it's just like you have to do it at a certain point because like that's what's gonna make everyone stop using Internet Explorers. When it just stops working, then they'll stop using it.
Mhm. Yeah, it's like you mentioned, and I love the way you phrased it, which was technical chicken, right? Where like this almost reminds me of the Python 2 versus Python 3 ecosystem shenanigans, where like all the plugin authors, like all the Python library authors, were like waiting for developers to start moving to Python 3 so that they could justify the cost of like retooling everything to support Python 3. But then all the Python developers were like waiting for all their favorite libraries to hit Python 3 so that they knew that they could do everything they wanted to do in this case. Like it's
And
that
then the
same kind of
OSs wouldn't want to install Python 3 by default, so you get Python 2 by default. So
yes.
yeah, it's like, and so it took 10 years to migrate instead of everyone biting the bullet and doing it in 2 years.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that just the other side effect of that is that leaves a whole bunch of uncertainty, right? Because even when the vast majority of people will have moved on from IE, like even corporations, like there's still going to be that uncertainty and that like documentation that still exists from the 10 years of uncertainty, right? Like no definitive answer is ever going to exist on this because after many years of just kind of this like technical chicken, no definitive answer has arisen. Um, yeah, it's that's difficult. But this is I think an interesting choice, and if your employer is willing to leave behind Internet Explorer in order to ship smaller, faster apps, and reduce build time complexity, I think that that's an interesting proposition, right?
I'd be
Like that's
curious
the
if what
trade-off.
IE support is like at your work, like if it exists or not, and
Yeah,
how
well,
thorough it is.
so I work without getting too much into specifics. Like I work with a bank that also deals quite a bit with veterans, right? And so we have demographics. Oh, and therefore we also work with like military bases and the such. So our demographics are going to skew a little higher towards Internet Explorer than maybe most sites. Like, um, you know, just kind of out of a necessity, right? And like with a bank and with regulations, right? Like you have to support a broad enough group that retiring Internet Explorer support is not an easy decision, right? It's not one to be taken lightly. And it's
Is it
one
like even a time horizon that has been mentioned? Because like now that Microsoft has like a 10-year time horizon, other people feel more comfortable with it.
we've we've been in talks. I'm not going to confirm one way or another because I still don't know the answers there, but I know that there have been conversations about it, and those conversations have reignited, especially recently. Um, so
My
yeah,
company's not important enough to have to worry about IE.
I the other thing is like working as developers. Like when you build things for other developers, it's usually a pretty safe assumption to believe that okay, your audience is probably going to be using a pretty modern browser, right? Like that's just an assumption you can make because you know your audience.
Yeah, they might even be using Brave.
Um, I my website is using all sorts of things like CSS custom properties, right? Which of course aren't supported in IE, but also my website is a web developer blog. Like if like who's reading a web dev blog on IE, you know? So
Masochist.
so yeah, this is kind of the interesting trade off, I guess. But yeah, let's hop back into some code. Is there more you'd like to do with this?
So what I would like to do now is we should check out one of the pre-built-in templates because
Okay.
one of the other things that's great is that it has 6 officially supported templates and then like a ton of community templates. So the officially supported ones are what most people would expect, which is React, Vue, just a regular vanilla JS one, Svelte,
Mhm.
Preact, and then I think TypeScript. So
Okay.
those are most of the front end frameworks most people would expect. And what I find interesting is you could use the Vite React template and
Mhm.
use it the same way you would like a Create React app, but it's like a way better, more awesome version of it because
Okay.
it's a lot leaner in what it gives you, and it has the whole dev server built-in kind of thing. So for me, that's a good way to kind of show people like why you would want to use this thing today. Like if you're someone who uses Create React app, like you should be using the Vite React template instead. Like I would strongly argue for that because it's still React. Like it's the same dependencies. It's just there's really no real difference beyond just the developer experience that goes along with it.
Gotcha. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I'm gonna, I guess, go ahead and spin down this Vite dev server, and so we're gonna use a template. Can you walk me through setting up a project with that template?
Yeah. So you're gonna have yarn space create space at Vite.js /app. Yeah, and then space, and then your project name, whatever you want to call it.
I'll call this Vite template, perhaps.
And then 2 dashes, and then the word template.
Okay.
Yeah, and then do you want to do Vue? You want to do React? Do you have a preference?
I'm good either way. Is there one you want to go with?
Yeah, let's go with React because I think that's going to be most of the audience will at least be familiar with it.
Cool.
More so than this could be hard to know with Vue, but it's usually fairly intuitive with both of them. So then you're just gonna do space and then React, and then that's it. Yeah.
All right.
And that should just take a couple of seconds. If you watch this thing also, sometimes you'll see the word ES build like flash across the screen as it's doing ES buildy things.
So got that. Gonna install dependencies. All right. Which that was relatively fast as far as dependency installation goes. So let's I guess take a look at what we've got here. Pro tip. This is from Marcelo. Pro tip: don't set the v-app directory to dot. And if it says the directory isn't empty, believe it. Oh no. That's the kind of pro tip you only get with experience. Let me go ahead and close the index HTML project that we had here. Okay, so I can see we got a couple things. We got our node modules. We got a source with, I mean, this is probably basically the same stuff that you would see in Create React app. We got some stateful logic here. We got JSX, which is significant. Yeah, but I'm not seeing a whole bunch of stuff with like, obviously there's no Webpack config, there's no Babel config that's needed.
Usually the Vite config.
Yeah. And it looks like it's got one whole plugin, which is React Refresh, which is probably for hot reloading, I'm guessing.
Yeah, the only config that I've used in here, which is really nice, is you can do a transform that basically makes it so you don't have to import React from React in every single file.
Oh, nice. Yeah, because that's native to Babel ever since God, like that's part of React 18, I think. Or no, is it 17? I think it's part of 17.
17 is when it supposedly was taken out. Yes.
All right. Yeah. Austin's got some love for the tiny config file. Isn't this excellent? Like every time I open my Webpack config, like I feel a sense of dread. Just because it's like it's a whole bunch of things all just arcanely defined, and it feels like every Webpack plugin has a different structure, right? And to look at this and go like, oh, okay, I can tell exactly what's going on here. At least only, like, I can tell exactly what I need to know here, which is just that this plugin does what it says it does, which is excellent.
Yeah, people are curious. I dropped a link to some of the JSX config stuff that you can do. And there's like same with CSS. So like for you doing some of your more cutting edge CSS stuff, looks like it has things here for you.
Cool. Yeah, let's I guess take a look at that. Travis wants to know whether plugins are typically functions. Is that something
That's a good question. I would assume that however the config is being, or Yeah, actually, yeah, that's good. That's a really good question because the plugin system is something that I am like a beneficiary of, but I've not built a plugin, so that's a level that I'm not super familiar with. But supposedly it's super extensible. This is something that Evan talks a lot about, and just like the virtues of a plugin system itself.
Ooh, support for CSS modules. That's fun. All right, we got some preprocessors. I dig it. Ah, nesting. This is, I swear, nesting is like the single reason I use Sass in my projects. It's just because I really like that syntax to be able to write nested styles. That's excellent. Static assets, which we've seen, which is excellent. JSON. Yeah, so a lot of this is like stuff that I take for granted with Webpack, but it's nice to see it like supported out of the box here instead of having to install like a JSON loader and an image loader and all the fun stuff in Webpack. So that's excellent. Okay, so let's dive into this here. And is there anything you'd like to do while we've got this code base up?
Yeah, we should just check out like the homepage that actually renders, and then look at the code for that.
So yarn dev. Look at that. It's up on 3,000. So let me just it's already up. Cool.
Ooh, don't click the counter.
Don't click the counter?
No, I'm kidding. I make jokes about it in my blog post. I'm like, you could click the counter, or you could just wonder for the rest of your life whether it would have incremented or not.
Oh my god. I feel like we need a troll now that's just like a counter that decrements when you click it. Shini's saying, please also run yarn build and yarn preview. Ooh, okay. These are...
Yeah, yarn build will eventually be run when we deploy this, but I would be curious what yarn preview does. I'm not familiar with that one.
Yeah, I'm wondering how that's different from dev, right? Like let's see. Let's do some experimentation here. So yarn build, this is gonna create the production build. Like that makes sense. Yeah, yarn serve, that makes sense. So it's
locally preview your production builds. That's really fascinating.
Oh.
So it builds the thing that's going to be deployed and lets you serve that thing. That makes a ton of sense.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because like this is the reason you don't do like a production dev server, right? It's because that's slow. It has to do all the source mapping and stuff like that. But I guess this gives you an option to do exactly that if you need, which is really cool.
And I just find this interesting because I'm messing around with Azure Functions right now, and like they have a really good local dev experience where you can basically work with Azure Functions like you're working locally versus AWS, where you're always like working with the cloud in some respect, which is like one that's nice. The second respect, I was like, okay, I got to work locally, but now I can't figure out how to get it actually deployed. Whereas like AWS, it's like it never worked locally, but at least it was deployed at a certain point.
All right, yarn serve, and it even I do like this. It gives me a different port that this runs on. I guess to just reinforce that this is kind of a separate thing going on. So this is what we're looking at here. This is a server that's running a production build. So I guess anytime I make a change, it's going to run yarn build. It's going to get a production build, and then this server is immediately going to spin that up. So the yarn dev for the dev server, that's going to be faster. It's going to be lighter weight as Vite takes shortcuts that it knows it can take when running in dev. But doing something like this, it's going to be slower to run a production server like this, but you can have more confidence. Oh, this doesn't have HMR. This doesn't have hot module reloading. That's good to know. Cool. Srini, thank you so much for the tip. That's excellent. All right.
And what I usually like to do is just kind of like edit the homepage, kind of give it your own little flavor, and just make sure you got your whole setup going.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do yarn dev again. So we'll run our dev server on 3,000, and then just gonna make collapse the disk real quick. Let me make some changes here. So, hello, chat. now is we'll make it our trolling negative counter here. And
Nice.
see. So hello chat, that was really quick too, which I know like this is the bare bones minimum boilerplate. That was such a fast change. Like I feel like with Webpack hot reloading, like every time I make a change, like the whole page has to reload and it thinks for like 3 seconds. And this was just like an instantaneous change. That's excellent.
Yeah, this is why it's hard to just talk about these kind of tools and like explain it to people, because really you gotta get your hands on them and like feel the difference developing with one versus the other. Because if you're someone who develops a lot and is always making changes and seeing the little like something that takes 3 seconds versus half a second, it's not noticeable in small doses, but on aggregate that adds up to a lot of time, you know. So it's like a huge accelerator in how it gets down to like the bare bones, like what is the stuff we're actually doing repetitively that needs to actually be fast. And that's why like so many people who use it are just like, wow, this is crazy fast, you know. And then like actually making it work to be that fast and still do all the things all the other stuff does is like really hard to do.
Yeah, like I just saved this and like instantaneously it was reflected over here. Like just this is very fast. There we go. Like that's instantaneous, right? And I'm sure if there was a lot more going on in this app, right, it would be more noticeable. But even still, this is already looking faster to me than my familiar Webpack setup.
Yeah. Cool. So what I like to do then from here is we can actually deploy this thing so people can check it out. And the way I would do that is get it on a GitHub repo, connect that GitHub. Actually, so before we do that, first thing you want to do is you want to create a netlify.toml, because that's where we will deploy it.
Okay. Let me go ahead and just make it. Ooh. My computer's been slowing down during streams, which is a little worrisome. But okay. Netlify lighting. All right.
Yeah. And then I'll build in perfect. Yeah. And then publish equals dist.
Publish equals this. Do I need?
So I'm do quotes around dist.
Makes sense.
And then command equals yarn build.
Yarn build. Okay, like that.
And then put spaces in between the yeah. I don't know if that's gonna affect it or not, but I'll prefer to not find out.
All right.
Cool. And so what this is doing, for anyone who doesn't know, this is going to tell Netlify when we connect it to our GitHub repo that the build command is yarn build, and it will build that in the folder called dist and then serve it from dist. So it'll do what we were just doing with the preview kind of thing. And this is like what's kind of slightly different if you're using some other build tools, is like what it builds into in terms of like just what the file's called, whether it's called dist or whether it's called public or something like that. And so when you're working with other tools like Amplify, that's if you just change like the build commands and then the publish directories, everything else should work. That's how, at least when I deployed both the React template and the Vue template, and just like everything just worked. It was like really, really crazy actually.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to create a repo on GitHub. I'm using the GitHub CLI, which I just absolutely love. So create -- public. I'm gonna put it in semantic step. I'm putting it in my organization, which is gonna make some of the Netlify stuff a little weirder than we're used to. But anyways,
I have faith in you.
Dev. Thank you. I will call this the React template. Yep. All right, and in case you were curious, y'all, here's a link to the repo. So you've got that now, and now I can try Netlify init. It's going to fail initially because organization privileges are odd, but even so.
So you can actually push your code to the repo as well.
Oh, do I have? Yeah, I haven't done the habit.
You just gotta get in it.
git push. There we go. That should
nice.
take it up. Okay, should be live now. So now I can run netlify init. So this is using the netlify CLI. Yep, I'm just gonna call this some Antics Vite template. Site created. And yeah, see this is the error that we typically get. That's fine. I can log into the Netlify console. Let me actually do that over here on another.
So what is this error? Why are you getting it?
Yeah, so my Netlify account is set up to my GitHub. However, I have a GitHub organization for stream code bases, and the Netlify authentication is a little odd for organization repos. So instead, I'm logging into the dashboard here.
Right, yeah.
So we can
That's fine. Yeah, I still stick with the dashboard, and this like these little things is I don't run into these things, but it's nice to know they exist. It makes me feel more justified in my decision.
So I'm on the deploys tab, and then link site to Git, GitHub. Yep. Oh,
yeah, this is good too. As you see, like where it puts in the build commands and whatnot.
I should probably have disabled notifications, huh? Anyways, that maybe should not have been as public as it was. That's fine. We don't have any hackers in this chat, but let's see. Vite. Oh, here it is. Here at the bottom. Vite React template.
So you see it plugs in your build command and your publish directory, and then you just gotta click deploy.
Cool. So it's spinning up. And this, we can probably check this out. Like, this is going to be pretty quick. And likely won't log any dangerous credentials.
Yeah, no, this will be fine.
Yep.
Yeah, this is what's cool because you actually see specifically which part is Vite building and which part is like them spinning up a container to get Vite to the build in the first place. And the actual Vite build part is like a handful of seconds.
Yeah, where is the Vite part?
Yeah, so it's after netlify build.
Netlify build. Yeah, so it's running the build command. So here it is, yarn build. Like, yeah, this is the Vite stuff, right? It's like it transformed it, and then it's like, well, you're done. Your site sure is live right now.
4.77 seconds.
Yeah, absolutely bonkers. And we can see this. This is gonna take me to the ugly commit hash URL, but this link should work. So yeah, we're
get a vanity URL going.
Yep. Cool. So we are live. This page is hittable, which is excellent. It's hittable in everything except for Internet Explorer.
Someone should test it. See what happens. Does anyone have Internet Explorer on the computer out there?
Oh man. All right, so yeah, that was pretty quick. We were able to get this deployed pretty quickly. And the nice thing is, like, we can already kind of see the cost benefits of, like, you know, Netlify was incredibly quick to build a Vite app, quicker than it would have been for Webpack. And so, like, bearing in mind that, you know, many people might pay for build minutes, right? Like,
almost everyone pays for build minutes.
Oh yeah,
or else they don't have many.
Yeah. And so the longer your site takes to build, like, that's literally like more money out of your pocket, right? And so having a fast build means fewer build minutes spent, meaning fewer dollars out of your pockets. Or, you know, maybe you've got like an enterprise instance of, like in my case, GitLab, right? Where, you know, to verify your changes work in any sort of environment, your code has to go through a whole pipeline every commit, right? Like, this is just a way to get faster feedback, which I love. And I don't know, it's one of those things where it seems not very impressive, right? Because this is the stuff I already take for granted with Webpack, but this is just out of the box, and it's fast.
Yeah, it's fast, and it's like not as much config, I think, as Webpack. And most people either they've gone down the rabbit hole of Webpack config and are like a master of it now, or they've always used tools that have just generated all of it for them. And so they've never even like looked at a Webpack config. And what I like about this is it's a lot more approachable to actually get into the config and add config into your project like this, because it comes like very clean and very simple, and then it has good docs, and they let you know, okay, here's the types of things you can add. If you need this, you need this, you need this, you need this. If you don't need any of these, you don't need any of this. You know? So I think that's really great in terms of like not being like hype driven development, in terms of just this is a tool that was made by developers who are developing their own stuff. This was created by Evan Yu, who was creating, Vue 3 at the time. This was like him like procrastinating Vue 3. He made Vite, and it was a thing where he was like, this is going to change the way I develop if I can get this tool to work the way that I want it to. And I'm always interested in these kind of progressions, because none of these things came out of a box. Like, there's no inherent reason why we're going to use Webpack for the rest of our life. Because we use things before Webpack, and we use things after it. And finding out where the tipping points are and which tools they're going to tip over into, it's really hard to do if you're not following these things like full time. It's like a person who follows the whole conversation. So I enjoy just kind of building simple kind of proof of concept acts. I can hopefully explain to people like just what it is in the first place, and then they can start to have a mental model to compare some of these different tools to each other, and hopefully make more informed decision. And yeah, they're saying in the chat that Evan, you created it, but like so much of this is way beyond him. Like that's why like all the templates and like the docs, like this is a very much a community project, and that's what's made it really cool. Because when it first started, it was for Vue, and eventually it's become this multi-purpose tool for almost any framework, and it works just as well for React as Vue, as far as I can tell. So I think that's really cool, and it shows that they're even though a lot of these tools were kind of being built for specific frameworks, people weren't dogmatic about it, and that people could look at and say, okay, this is like being made for Vue, but I can just kind of hack it a little bit and get it to do exactly what I want for React. And if it's going to be the best tool, then it's going to be the best tool. And that's what leads to this virtuous cycle of people continuing to improve these things and test them with different frameworks and get them to work correctly.
Yeah. So okay, I have one question, which is that I tend to on the side do quite a bit of 11D development, and perhaps one of the things that I continually forget about 11D is that it's using require syntax, right? Like, does this mean I wouldn't be able to develop 11D with that, or like, can I go ahead and still use that? Can I still use Vite? Like, could I use Vite with 11D, or is
someone did it, so it's not a question
of
if, it's a question of how badly you want it, I would imagine.
Yeah. Now I'm curious. Let's take a look at this link you've sent. Okay.
Yeah, so you have a hybrid setup where you're still running Node with Vite together.
This is interesting.
Yeah, I'd be really curious to get Zach's take on that.
Yeah.
Someone made Doom with Vite. Oh, of course they have.
Of course. Cool.
Doom is the new Hello World, right?
Right. Yeah. Import Doom from Doom. Invoke Doom. Okay. So, is there anything else you wanted to show or talk about with regards to these tools?
Let's see. I'll just drop some more links in the chat. As we've been saying, they have a lot of community stuff. So you check out their Twitter, check out their website. They have a Discord chat. They've got all sorts of ways that you can get involved and ask questions or just learn more about it. And I highly recommend people get involved in open source. And if you're someone who is looking at all these different open source projects that are like out in the world and have a hard time thinking like what do I even like learn? Like, how do I even invest my time in these different things? And that was something I struggled with like many years. And it took like just studying and listening to podcasts and reading and eventually getting a sense of like what I thought was, important and what isn't. And I think out of all the things that are around, this is one of like the safest bets as like a thing that I think is a good investment to like learn at least a little bit about. because regardless of whether it's a tool you end up using in your work or not, it's reflective of lots and lots of changes in the ecosystem, and it'll make you aware of those changes in a way you won't if you kind of continue to use the old stuff and then wait till all the new stuff is eventually implemented, then learn the new stuff. You can kind of ride that wave and see where the puck is going with things like this. So I wouldn't say like rewrite your whole company's production app in Vite today. Like I would say start building simple little things like we've done today with this, get a feel for it, get a feel for like what it can do, and then start saying, okay, what could I actually migrate to this? And supposedly you can migrate all of Redwood to it, which like blows my mind, and I'm still curious to kind of see what that's going to look like. But eventually we're going to be in a different world of these type of build tools, and it's just good to be aware of them and have some kind of experience with them, so when other people start talking about it and bring into your projects, you at least know what they are.
All right.
Yeah, someone mentioned micro bundle. This is another actually interesting thread that we should poke at, which is WMR, which is the same team, I think, or it has a similar people who are working on micro bundle as well. And this is kind of like the third one, along with Snowpack, like Vite, Snowpack, and WMR. Kind of compare them all to each other. WMR is an acronym that means nothing, so they came up with a bunch of made up ones.
Okay.
My favorite is Waldo's my roommate.
Waldo's my roommate. Understood. Yeah, I'm just getting like Windows Mixed Reality.
Yeah, it's really hard to Google. I usually Google a first look at
React.
WMR and find my
There we
own.
go. Is this it? Looks like it's by the React team.
It is. Yeah, exactly.
Good to know. Yeah, so lots of tools that are just like built around just building quickly, it seems like.
And I suppose I should plug, I wrote a series about all of these, actually.
Yeah, plug it.
Yeah, so yeah, I really enjoy blogging about these kind of things, and it's a good way to build up your own kind of knowledge, but then also can share it with others as well. Yeah. And so what I did one where I built a project with Snowpack and Vite and WMR, and then it was kind of gave me a way to look at them all and kind of get a sense of like how they actually compare to each other.
Okay. And
I find like this is a really useful exercise, and it doesn't take a huge amount of time. Like each of these took me like maybe a day to do, So I highly recommend people do this kind of thing.
Oh, there we go. It's in the chat.
Yeah, I'm dropping them all.
Yeah.
It's the important ones.
Love that. I will open up the Vite one just to demonstrate. Because I'm pretty sure there'll be links to each of the others in the series if I know Dev2 at all. Yeah, there we go. So yeah, definitely check out this whole series. That's what I'll put in the chat, I think, is the series link. I really like this, and I enjoy that you do this work to check this out, because like I feel like I'm one of those people who sees the tidal wave of new technologies, and it's just like, you know what? I may opt out of learning some of these things, right? Like if there's one that's the right tool for the job, like it'll surface to the top, right? With time. But I do really appreciate that there are people such as yourself that are taking the time to like investigate these things and to figure them out, because everyone's trying to kind of solve this problem of how do we make it easy to go fast.
Have you heard the pioneers, settlers, town planners thing?
No, I don't think I have.
Yeah, it's just like a mental model of how certain people are pioneers. They want to be the first person to do a thing. Like I'm very much a pioneer. It's why I write all these blog posts. Whereas other people are settlers. Once they know what the thing is to build with, then they'll start building with it and do something substantial. And then there's town planners who, once the thing's built, they show up and live in it.
Ah, okay. Gotcha.
Yeah.
Well, cool. Anything else for us today, Anthony?
No, we're right on time.
All right. Then let me go ahead and go back to this.
Thanks so much, Ben. Thanks everyone who was in the chat. That was
yes.
a lot of really great input of stuff I did not know about Vite at all. So it's always cool having people come in and teach me things about my own topic.
CD in particular, thank you so much for dropping those links and providing resources. And it looks like there is a link to the Vite Discord in the chat, so go feel free to join that, especially if you need support. I'm sure they'd be happy to help you out there. Y'all, thank you so much for joining today. the next time I'll be streaming is this Friday. I've got Alex Trost of Frontend Worst Notoriety coming on. He's going to be showing off how to use Prismic's slice machine features to Prismic being a content management system, just basically using slice machine to build sites with content really quickly. And so I'm really excited for that. I've been catching his streams as of late. He just seems like such a fun guy. I'm super excited to have him on. It's gonna be a lot of fun. Trying to do a few more streams here and there so I can hit affiliate, and that way y'all can subscribe and get those good emotes. So y'all, this has been a great time. Anthony, thank you so much for joining us on Some Antics again, and I will see you all on Friday. Bye.
Everyone.